Welcome back. Monday, Locked On Blue Jays. A lot to go over. A weird series. I don't necessarily know how to feel about it. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, down on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As always, I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5E Wasco. Carter First, too, as well. Our main Twitter account, so go follow us on there, at Locked On Jays. As well, you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, both at Locked On Blue Jays. As well, if you're new here to YouTube or you're listening on another app like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever it may be, go to the YouTube page anyway. Hit the subscribe button there. It really does help us out. We're trying to grow. We're trying to become bigger, and it's free. You guys get your videos, your podcasts, your shorts, your live streams, everything right there on the YouTube page. Make sure you do that, even though from now on, we will be able to actually stream to a bunch of different platforms. So keep an eye out. I think we will be able to stream on the Twitter and something else as well. So keep an eye out there. So for our next live stream, that's where we'll be doing it. I know we still have to do the 999 challenge coming up for a live stream. So at one point, we'll get to doing that. But a weekend of baseball, the Blue Jays lose the series, and they were all one-run ball games. Now, this is just me. We checked over the statistics. The Blue Jays in games that are within 2 runs or end within 2 runs are 13 and 9, 13 and 11.
13 and 11.
And what that said, I guess where my head was at with that was, as of late, it seemed like they were losing a lot of tight games. And we didn't go into the full, check on, going into the 9th inning or 8th inning, what was the score? But it feels like the Blue Jays, in a lot of close games, end up just giving away the game. And there was a couple, obviously, bullpen blowups that attribute to that. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating when you are playing a good baseball team, a very good baseball team in the Detroit Tigers, and have the opportunity to realistically take every game, and you come out with one of them. That would have been a massive series win for the Toronto Blue Jays to get, and they just weren't able to get it done. Game 1, I thought they had it. No. Game 2, they get the job done. Ernie Clement, because of a play that I will get into because I have a lot of feelings on. I think a bad decision on the Detroit Tigers manager's behalf, but we'll talk about it. And then Game 3, again, you have the opportunity to win a ball game, and the bats don't show up. And it feels like, Carter, and you can let me know how you feel on this as well. When the bats are going strong, the pitching has off days. Then when the pitching is doing well or decent enough, the offense doesn't show up. I don't know. I'm just getting a little bit frustrated. It seems like this team, and for the past couple seasons as well, have been the same thing. They just can't put it all together. And I want to talk about Daulton, Varsho, and Alejandro Kirk, because we asked for those 2 guys specifically to show up, and they have been here. You haven't got the home run production from Vlad. You haven't got the home run production, especially or almost anything from Santander. I got a lot of feelings, my man. How are you feeling after that weekend?
The Detroit Tigers have a very good pitching staff. We got Jack Flaherty, we got Reese Olson, we got Jackson Jobe. We didn't even get Tyreek Skubal or Casey Mize. This is a very good starting rotation, and it's also a very good bullpen as well. Just in bullpen ERA, they are 4th best in the league. So this pitching staff is very good, and that's kind of what you expect with the Detroit Tigers. But you don't really expect the offense to kind of carry them throughout games. And that's kind of what we've seen early on this season. Kerry Carpenter's been really good. Riley Green has obviously been very good as well. They have multiple supplementary pieces that have really made this team very good and obviously contending for one of the best records in all of baseball. So the Detroit Tigers are not that kind of throwaway, you got to game series anymore. They have a very good pitching staff. They have a very good all-around team here as well. And that is why they are one of the best teams in the AL right now. But there's some positives in the series, and there is some negatives in the series. You want to spin zone it in a positive way. The Toronto Blue Jays were in every single game this series. All 3 games were very close. They end up losing 2 out of the 3, which is unfortunate. And that is the negative part of the series, is that you don't get the results. You do lose 2 out of 3. You do get some home runs. You do get a little bit of offense. Is there really one facet of this team in particular you can blame for this weekend? I don't really think so. It's just the cohesion of this team. Is that it really feels like when the pitching's on, we kind of talked about this on the before this episode. When the pitching's on, it doesn't feel like the hitting is on whatsoever. This team finally starts hitting home runs. They have they have 2 solo shots in that first game of the series, and then you don't have runners on. You don't get the on base and the hits and the singles, which we are accustomed to seeing with this baseball team. It just feels like that once one thing is firing on this team, whether it's the starting pitching, whether it's the bullpen, whether it's the hitting, as soon as one facet of the team is hot, the other one seems to cool off. And we got to find this middle ground where we get some fairly good pitching, some fairly good bullpen play, and some fairly good offense. You don't need to be the best at the top of the ceiling every single time, but when we see good teams, especially like the Detroit Tigers, especially like the San Diego Padres, that's what we will see for this next upcoming series. You're playing these good baseball teams. You kind of need everything to peel together and come together to win against a very tough team, whether it's in the AL or the NL.
Yeah, and you said it. I mean, is there a specific part of this team that didn't show up that needed to? I would have liked to see more runs put up on the board by this offense, and there was some situations that this offense had opportunities to score runs and didn't, and that's been an issue plaguing this team for all season pretty much. But it also wasn't horrible. Again, like you said, it was a good pitching staff that they faced. It is just the cohesion, and it wasn't. I don't want to say it was a bad weekend for the offense because I don't necessarily believe that. I just think it wasn't good enough, and I guess that's sort of the issue I have. Is this team good enough? I don't know. I'm sort of getting torn because for 5 days I'll think, wow, this team looks like they might be able to put it all together. And then the next 5 days they sort of take me back out of it. And again, I'm not trying to be negative because I think that this was a fairly good weekend. And I guess you're right. There's positives, there's negatives, there's everything in between. A lot of mediocrity, I guess, is the right way to say that. I don't know. I guess, Carter, I don't really know where I stand with this team right now. I don't know what to tell people when they ask me, how are the Toronto Blue Jays? I don't know if I should be saying that they're a good baseball team, a bad baseball team, or somewhere in the mushy middle, which is almost the worst place to be. And over the past couple of years, that's sort of what it's felt like here, is that the Toronto Blue Jays are just stuck right in that mushy middle. And again, I think that it was a good weekend. I thought you had the opportunity to take some games from this Detroit Tigers team, and you just can't get the job done. It's frustrating. I guess it's frustratingly good and frustratingly bad all at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating in any single one-run game you're playing against, whether it's against the Chicago White Sox, the Colorado Rockies, or the Los Angeles Dodgers, or the Detroit Tigers. Doesn't matter what opponent you're facing. If you have a tight game, a winnable game in a lot of these games that we saw, every single game that we saw in the Tiger series, probably were winnable games. So it is definitely unfortunate. And before we kind of go game by game, I just want to bring up the power, the home run thing that we've kind of been talking about. We're finally starting to get in the home runs. And I wanted to bring up one guy in particular that is hitting those home runs. And this is either a very good thing for one player or a very bad thing for the entire team. We were golfing on the golf course. If you couldn't realize, don't realize I'm wearing a polo still for the people that are on Spotify, on any of the podcasting platforms. So if you don't have the video as well, we were golfing earlier today, had the Jays game on, and the cart was pretty fun to follow along as well. Me and Braden didn't necessarily shoot the best, but obviously had a good time doing it. But one thing that we have noticed, and everyone has noticed, is that Daulton Varsho is on a different planet right now. It's absolutely insane. If we're talking about projections, again, he has played 14 games, but if somehow he does keep this up, he's on pace for like 65, 70 home runs. Aaron Judge numbers in the home run department. So that is the good part about this. Daulton Varsho has 6 home runs in 14 games. That is absolutely ridiculous. This guy has not missed a beat from playing in AAA Buffalo. Good thing he was hitting throughout spring training. In AAA, it was a shoulder thing. It was more so a throwing progression, which was the problem for Daulton Varsho. And for the time of need with this offense, there was a massive problem, obviously, before Daulton Varsho came back. The team did not hit home runs. They were last or bottom 3 in the league for the majority of the season. Daulton Varsho comes back, and this is the good and the bad. I'll kind of get into it right now. Daulton Varsho, 6 home runs in 14 games. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Anthony Santander, again, roughly, actually pretty precisely, actually, within 37 games, I want to say 37, 38, 39, maybe 40 games, whatever it is. This team has played now 46 games, so they probably are a little bit higher than that. But all three of those guys have 5 home runs. 14 games compared to, we'll say, roughly 40 games. And Daulton Varsho has more home runs than Anthony Santander, who's making $92.5 million. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., as good or bad as he's going to play, there's always going to be that number looming over his head, the $500 million. Only 5 home runs in about 40 of those games. George Springer, I mean, you got to be happy with 5 home runs the way he's playing, so I'm not necessarily going to throw George Springer into this. But when you have a guy that has played only 14 games compared to these guys that are making massive amounts of money, and you're not necessarily getting the production from these guys, it's great to see Daulton Varsho hitting, but it is definitely frustrating to see some guys that you are paying a whole lot of money not necessarily hitting for the power.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. How do you argue that? Right? How do I go and somebody telling me that Vlad got paid $500 million and Santander's making 92, and then you talk about stats, you can't even talk about stats, because you're right, Daulton Varsho has been the best player on the Toronto Blue Jays, defensively and offensively. And you know what? I do want to talk more about him, and I'm going to do a little bit of a gloating here for Daulton Varsho for a little bit. But I think, Carter, let's take a quick break. Let's come back. I do want to talk Daulton Varsho. I want to talk Alejandro Kirk, and then just a little bit of the in-game stuff that I had either issues with or found interesting throughout the series as well. I think take a quick break. We'll come back with all that right away.
Today's episode is sponsored by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. Obviously, like I said on this podcast, we were golfing before this. Perfect, convenient to-go snack on the golf course. Again, have the golf glove on, kind of getting in the dirt, in the mud, especially me looking for my ball in the bush all the time. I get my hands a little bit dirty, so I don't necessarily want to, dive into a sandwich, dive into some finger foods. Wonderful Pistachios, and you just crack open the lid, fire them into me, keeps me satiated, keeps me feeling good, and have some energy for the entire round, whether I'm shooting good or whether I'm shooting bad most of the time. Unfortunately for me, it is not going too well. Another nice thing about Wonderful Pistachios is that they are a complete protein. They provide all 9 essential amino acids. Perfect convenient snack, whether you're at the movies, in the office, at work, no matter what you are doing. Convenient snack for you guys for any sort of daily job that you are doing. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
All right, Carter, I said I want to talk Daulton Varsho, so I'm going to start there. Daulton Varsho, above and beyond for me, has been my favorite player to watch this season. Since he's been back, like you said, 6 home runs. He's hitting the ball hard. He's making outstanding defensive plays. And even when he gets out, Carter, he is hitting the ball so hard that there are line drives that are making the defensive team have to dive for balls. Don't get me wrong, Daulton Varsho's had some base hits, some extra base hits stolen from him because players are making good plays, but he's hitting the ball so hard that it's giving them the opportunity. It's not a bloop single. Daulton Varsho is not going to hit a bloop single. Daulton Varsho is going to smack the ball and he's going to try to beat you like that. And I just have to give him the hat tips because what an excellent season he has had so far. And I'm hoping he can continue. Again, are we going to see this for the rest of the season? No, you can't expect that from anybody. But man, since we've had him, it has been excellent. It has been excellent since he's been back.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, Daulton Varsho is not Aaron Judge. You can't expect 60 home runs from Daulton Varsho. If you can get half of that from Daulton Varsho, I think you're going to be very happy, especially with him missing the first month of the season. But like you said, defensively, like he was climbing the wall in this series. There was a home run to center field, pretty much like a no-doubter. But Daulton Varsho got all the way up that, 12-foot wall. Like he was climbing that wall like it was absolutely nothing. So this guy is absolutely ridiculous on defense. And then in the second game of the series, the only game that the Toronto Blue Jays did win, this guy's the guy that gets the leadoff double. He hammers one down the first base line, gets the second base. Obviously, we'll get kind of into that as we go game by game. But very good at bats from Daulton Varsho. Has a very circular swing, kind of really turns his hips around and really gets outside of the baseball. And that's how he's able to hook it down that first base line. A very interesting swing by Daulton Varsho, but it's definitely working out very well. And this is the power hitter that, again, we didn't necessarily think that would be that spark plug for this team, but definitely has been in the short term. But just kind of going into the first game here with Daulton Varsho, obviously a very good baseball player, has been electric since he has come back. But I do want to go kind of game by game for this series. I'm not going to get into too many specifics in game one. I kind of want to talk about Bowden Francis in general. Again, home runs being a massive problem for Bowden Francis. Gets up another 2 home runs in this game, 14 home runs now on the season. Not going to play. Again, you can give up solo shots. They're not going to necessarily hurt you. But with Bowden Francis right now, what's beating him and what is hurting him a whole lot is that he is hanging the splitter a lot of the time. See it with Kevin Gausman sometimes, not too much. We see it with Erik Swanson when he does play again. Has been a little while since Erik Swanson has played. But with Bowden Francis, the location a lot of the time is out over the plate, especially when it is a splitter, when it is 80, 81, 82 miles an hour, whatever it ends up being. When it is over the plate, when it is slower, especially elevated, that we have been seeing a lot of times, players are able to get to that pitch and they are hitting it a long way, whether it's left field, right field, center field. They are clearly getting to that splitter. So with Bowden Francis, especially not a guy that's going to blow you away with the velocity, kind of sitting 91, 92 a lot of the time. Did have a lot of success early on in the season. Obviously had a ton of success in 2024 last season. But as soon as you start hanging the splitter, whether it's a Kevin Gausman splitter, which I think is fair to say Kevin Gausman splitter is better than Bowden Francis's. But no matter who you are, if you're going to hang that splitter, if you're going to hang a changeup, any sort of off-speed pitch that's going to get a lot of the plate, that's traditionally not going to bode too well for you. And Bowden Francis has had a massive home run problem so far this season.
Yeah, and you know what? You see it, right? You can see that teams have started to figure him out, and that's the issue is, and we talk about this all the time. How do you go and make adjustments, right? When you find out the teams are figuring out what you're throwing, figuring out how you're throwing it, how do you then go and make adjustments to get to that next level? We talked about that with Davis Schneider, right? Has he been able to adjust? No, he's in AAA, right? Some guys can do that. Some guys can figure it out. Addison Barger looks like a guy that has figured it out. Nathan Lucas, a guy that can figure it out. Does Bowden Francis have the, maybe you call it the it factor of being able to go and make the changes necessary to become a better player? That's what I'm interested to see. I don't have the answer for you. We're just going to have to wait and see. See if he changes things. See if he makes little adjustments that can affect his game big time. So, I don't know. Interesting outing from him. I wasn't too pleased. I haven't been super high on the Bowden Francis train this season. I wanted to see how he would respond after the end of the season he had last year, Carter.
Yeah, talking about guys that have figured it out, though, and this isn't necessarily game specific to game one, but he did pitch in that first game. Yariel Rodriguez looks absolutely unbelievable. The slider is ridiculous. The fastball, especially when he does have that command, definitely plays sitting about 95, 96. Yariel Rodriguez, man, when this guy is on, we've said this a lot of the time, it's just the consistency factor with Yariel. When he's on, he could be a setup guy in the MLB, and it's not even a discussion whatsoever. The slider's disgusting. The fastball plays, obviously, split figure mix into there, obviously keeps hitters very off balance. Again, this kind of transitions into game two because did pitch in that game as well after the Eric Lauer start, who I definitely want to go into as well. But these guys, again, the guys that you don't necessarily expect to be the big dogs of the bullpen, coming out and absolutely showing out. And that's a big thing, especially when you're paying a guy like Yariel Rodriguez about $8 million relatively to pitch for your baseball team.
Yeah, Carter. And just before we get into game two, game one, when Daulton Varsho hits that home run, I thought it was game over. I was like, yeah, the Blue Jays are going to steal this one. I even texted the group chat, I thought they had it. Maybe I put a jinx on them. I don't know. Not a good look for me. But it gives you hope. It shows that maybe the addition of Daulton Varsho and the way that Alejandro Kirk's playing, George Springer, how he started the year, it shows a little bit more grit, right? Sometimes I think in the past couple of years, we'd see this team get down and they pretty much fold over. Now, maybe they do have a little bit of heart. Maybe we are seeing the heart of this team come out and be able to climb back in ball games. We've seen it happen. We've seen the little bit of battle. They're not going up there looking defeated. They're going up there and looking, okay, how do we swing this back into our favor? So that's been a good thing to see, definitely, for this baseball club.
Yeah, another thing, quickly going back to game one, is Bichette hitting a home run in that game.
Yeah.
we're starting to see the power from Bichette. I've been saying on this podcast multiple times that with the Bichette, the caliber of hitter this guy is, he should accidentally run into 15 home runs at absolute minimum. Probably get 20, hopefully 25. But again, the caliber of the hitter this guy is, how well he barrels up baseballs. This guy is absolutely insane and has had a very good year. Just going over some brief stats. Again, don't really outline what Bichette is doing recently, which I'll get into the last few games as well. 292 on the year, 4 home runs is up to after not hitting a lot home runs whatsoever until May. 22 RBIs, 772 OPS. But I really just want to specify on the last 15 and then 7 games. So in the last 15 games, 62 at-bats, 18 hits for a 290 average, 371 on base percentage, slugging of 565. I'm going to try to do some quick math here. 936 OPS. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Pretty sure that is right, but a very good OPS from Bichette, and it's even better, obviously, in these last few games. 1,000 OPS in the last 7 games, 321 average. Again, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. The power is starting to come for Bichette, and this is a discussion that we're going to have. I don't think necessarily on this podcast. It is a bigger topic. We do have an off day, obviously, for the Monday episode, so we can talk about a little bit of lineup discussions. There has been a little bit of a narrative recently that with Bichette hitting for power, hitting for doubles, I think he had 14 doubles for sure on that Saturday. Sunday, I don't think he had another one. So I think he's at 14 doubles, which is a very good number for Bichette, especially early on in the season. This guy's going to start hitting for power. He's going to start hitting home runs. He's especially going to start hitting balls to right field. If you have a runner on first base, obviously very easy for that runner. If you're hitting a ball in the right field to go from first to third, especially if you have a little bit of speed on the base paths. Some people are saying Bichette, maybe move him down to that second spot, but obviously who's going to lead up in that scenario? But we'll leave that for another day. But Bichette, the at-bats, just, again, the power, the barrel percentage, everything like that. Easiest bounce back candidate of all time. We appreciate in this offseason, and we're seeing that come through fruition throughout the first quarter of the season.
Yeah, you said it. We knew this. We expected this. I think everybody in their right mind expected Bichette to bounce back.
Everyone who was in the right mind, maybe you should say.
That's true. I mean, they're
there
always
was a lot of Bichette haters. It was crazy, actually, during this offseason.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. In the right mind is a good take. Carter, let's move into game 2 here, because I know, we don't want to keep everybody super long. We always try to get, try to keep on time here on the Monday episode. So otherwise we could sit here and talk for 4 hours.
And this is the fun game, the game the Toronto Blue Jays actually won. I know you have a take on that.
Yeah,
obviously.
You know what?
That'll let you kind of just take the floor if you want to jump right into it.
No, you know what? I'm going to let you go, talk about the pitching, talk about Lauer, talk about the boys, and then, let me get into sort of the 9th inning of it all.
I don't know what is actually going on with Eric Lauer. I'm not going to lie. When I was talking about Eric Lauer on this podcast, we were talking about the pitching depth on this podcast with Max Scherzer. I'm not going to open that can of worms because Max Scherzer, again, not exactly ideal for the Toronto Blue Jays situation right now. But Eric Lauer, I mean, over the last 3 starts, 7 2/3 innings, just ridiculous stuff going on from Eric Lauer. Just, I think gave up 1 run in that second game of that series. But it's weird how he's doing it. Like, I don't know, just watching him, how he's actually producing these kind of numbers. And I had to dive into the stats a little bit behind this as well. And it's really just the fastball that he's playing off of really well. Eric Lauer is that kind of guy that, for me, if you talk about Eric Lauer without seeing like the eye test, it's 100 in your U numbers. He's sitting maybe 90 miles per hour with the fastball. Wouldn't be surprised if he sits 80. But we're seeing 94, 93, sometimes even touching 95 somehow with the fastball, which is not necessarily expected whatsoever. Just going into some of the basic statistics with him, 0.77 batting average off the fastball, 154 slugging percentage. It's been really good for Eric Lauer, especially with this 5th rotation start that, for me, honestly, is kind of like a 50-50 ball at best. A lot of the time we're seeing these pitching matchups, especially in this second game of the series. You see Eric Lauer going out on the mound. Not necessarily a guy that I'm going to be excited to see, but he has been absolutely dominant. And again, this little stretch, very small sample size, albeit, but he has been very good, especially with this 5th starting rotation spot completely up in the air after this Max Scherzer injury.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm very shocked. Me and you've had many conversations about what we thought Eric Lauer's potential was for this team. And is this a situation of, he comes in, eventually guys figure him out? Maybe. But as of right now, Carter, he does. He looks good. He looks solid. I'm sorry. I can't wait any longer. I got to get this off my chest. I got to talk about it. The 9th inning of the Saturday night baseball game might have made me go a little bit crazy, okay? I'm usually an eye test guy, all right? I'm usually, you got to have a feel for the situation, everything like that. So Vladdy goes up in the 9th inning and grounds out, I believe. Then Daulton Varsho goes up, double to deep right. So he gets on 2. And then Anthony Santander pinch hitting comes in the ball game.
The George Springer did advance Varsho to third. I just want to make
That's
sure
right.
you have
Sorry,
that.
yes, I forgot about that. So Springer advances Varsho to third. So runners on 3, 2 away. Anthony Santander pinch hits.
Yeah.
And what do the Tigers decide to do? 189 hitting, Anthony Santander comes up to the plate. And what do the Tigers decide to do? They walk Anthony Santander for this. I was sitting at work watching the game. My immediate reaction is, why in the world would you just bring up with 2 outs a notorious, I said bloop single hitter, Ernie Clement, instead of Anthony Santander, who you might be able to strike out? I think that was a crazy decision. I think knowing what Ernie Clement has been doing lately with the bloop singles, I think that is and maybe this is just the baseball, I don't know, geek in me. I think in that situation, I take the chance of the strikeout on Anthony Santander over the contact hitting bloop single in Ernie Clement that's going to kill you. And sure enough, literally right after I say that, single by Ernie Clement wins in the ballgame. And people will argue and they'll say Santander is Santander. You got to go with how you feel and who is notoriously better. But if I'm in that game and I'm sitting there, I'm like, yikes, I don't like that for them at all. I was pumped for the Blue Jays because I knew it. I should have put a bet on that because I was sitting there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes while they walk Anthony Santander and Ernie Clement gets up to the plate. I'm like, he's going to hit a single and they're going to win this game. Sure enough, he hits a single and they win the game. I don't know. I think it's a very bold decision. I think with the way you got to also look at the situation. Anthony Santander not having a great season, striking out quite often, and then also coming into the game pinch hitting. And instead you just decide to go to Ernie Clement. I think just a very bold call. But again, good for the Blue Jays, so I'm pumped.
See, like when I look at this situation, for like in Tigers comparison, it's like if Kerry Carpenter is up to the plate, and then you have like a Colt Keith kind of coming up to the plate. Like Anthony Santander is getting paid $92.5 million. Ernie Clement's getting paid under $1 million. But to your point, if we're gonna go over the recency bias and just using the eye test a little bit here, I kind of wanted to go over their stats. Even just in the last 7 games here. So in the last 7 games, Anthony Santander, 5-4, 26, 192 average, 9 strikeouts during that time. An on base of 250. Slugging doesn't really matter at that point. You just really need a single. But we're looking at Ernie Clement, which a lot of guys were kind of hating on Ernie Clement early on in the season. I've always been an Ernie Clement supporter. Last 7 games, 8 for 23. Ernie Clement, 348 average, 360 on base, 522 slugging. And slugging in this scenario doesn't really matter too much because you just need to get a hit into the outfield. If you're just looking at recency bias, Santander in that situation, probably more of a big of a strikeout candidate. But again, you have a guy on third base. When I see this walk happen, I'm thinking maybe they want Ernie Clement, especially being a contact hitter. Maybe you want that forced out at second base. Maybe you want another option. You have an out first, you have an out at second. Then they concede second base to Anthony Santander. So clearly this just was a matchup thing, which I guess, again, when you look at the name value, Anthony Santander, you'd rather get beat by Ernie Clement than Anthony Santander, in my opinion. I think that is fairly obvious when you're looking at the name value. But just based off, again, especially as Blue Jays fans, us seeing Anthony Santander at bats, they've been horrible. And that's the reason why he dropped to the number 5 spot in the third game of the series, because the at-bats were not very good. So I think in this scenario, if they get beat by, say they pitch Anthony Santander, I think a lot of people are going to be on the other side of this fence. If he hits that single, they're going to be like, oh my God, why would you pitch Anthony Santander? Especially when you have Ernie Clement coming up. If you're like a traditional MLB fan, maybe you've heard of Ernie Clement, but you're not very familiar with this game whatsoever. So again, the name value does hold a lot of merit here, no matter how the player is playing. And again, hindsight is 2020. You see Ernie Clement hitting a single, a lot easier to say, oh, maybe you should have pitched Anthony Santander with him struggling. So I don't think this is necessarily a bad decision by the Detroit Tigers. Don't remember his name off the top of my head, but don't not a bad decision by the Detroit Tigers general manager.
Yeah, and I get that part of it because, yeah, then you get the backlash from every MLB fan that doesn't know of Ernie Clement. But me sitting here as a Toronto Blue Jays fan, understanding the situation, and this isn't hindsight 2020 for me. I said this right before they walked, or as they were walking Anthony Santander, I'm like, oh, that's a terrible decision. That's a terrible decision. So for those of you that say, oh, hindsight, well, for me, it wasn't, because that was my take before the play happens. And I, to me, this comes down to maybe somebody not doing their homework on these guys, because I think in that situation, you see the statistics and how Ernie Clement has been playing. Eye test or statistics, either one, they'll tell you the same thing. I don't know. It's just a weird call, but I do sort of get it from what you're saying. If you're looking at this as an MLB fan or a fan of a different team, and you see that they didn't have the chance to, or they had the chance to walk Anthony Santander to get Ernie Clement up and they didn't take it, then you think, oh, well, botched play, they should have walked them. So I get it from both sides, but I think if they would have done their homework, they would have known, hey, we might have a better chance of it with Anthony Santander right now. But it worked out in Blue Jays' favor, so it is what it is.
Yeah, you can't really complain, especially when the Toronto Blue Jays do get a walk-off win. One more thing I quickly want to go over before we do head into the third game and the third segment of this episode is the Nathan Lukes effect. And this guy, again, people wanted him DFA'd. Absolutely crazy, in my opinion. Again, Nathan Lukes isn't statistically supposed to be a guy that's going to hit 300, be throwing every single runner out ever, and that's what I kind of want to allude to on this podcast. But I want to start out in the 8th inning, because that Ernie Clement single does not matter. Or I guess it does matter, ties up the baseball game, but does not win the baseball game if this doesn't happen in the 8th inning. Ernie Clement starting it again with a walk. Nathan Lukes just doing a job, getting that sacrifice bunt out. Alejandro Kirk does hit that single. Alejandro Kirk at-bats have been unbelievable. He is lining the ball everywhere, especially when he's getting out. It is a loud out. So I just wanted to throw some credit to Alejandro Kirk. I know we're running a little bit late on this episode, which is typical for a weekend series. But I really want to talk about the top of the 9th inning, is that Gleyber Torres does get a walk. Riley Green fly out to deep left center field. Nathan Lukes, an absolute gun to second base, not allowing the Detroit Tigers to add runs whatsoever. Guns Gleyber Torres at second base. Not the first time Nathan Lukes has done this. Whether it's defensively, again, on the base paths, it's been a lot better. Nathan Lukes is that guy. And a guy that, again, traditionally what you would think is supposed to be a platoon hitter for the Toronto Blue Jays team. This guy's done more than enough to earn regular playing time on the Toronto Blue Jays, and he has been rewarded with regular playing time because of plays like this.
Yeah, no, it totally. Nathan Lukes has been probably one of the biggest shocks to me this year, because at some point I was pretty down on Nathan Lukes. I didn't think he had the stuff. I thought if any guy was going to get sent down, it was going to be him. And Alejandro Carter, I can't talk enough good things about him. The defensive play, the offensive play, everything in totality has been fantastic. You know, you talk about these two guys, Daulton Varsho and Alejandro Kirk. I said it at the beginning of this year that Alejandro Kirk might be an all-star this season. That was one of my, I think, takes or hot takes of the year. And you know what? If he keeps this up, Carter, I think that's in full effect this season.
Yeah, I don't know really who's competing with him right now. Cal Raleigh, I guess, would be one, obviously, with I think it's 12 home runs at this point. Adley Rutschman going to be in that conversation. But again, the floor that Alejandro Kirk provides with his defense, again, in the third game, I will quickly go into that in this third segment. But this guy has been lining baseballs all over the place. Obviously, not going to be your traditional slugger, but that's not what you expect from Alejandro Kirk. You're going to get that floor with his defense, and he's going to, again, start providing some offense, whether it's in the 4 spot, the 5 spot, the 6 spot, whatever it may be. That is going to be a very good thing for this Toronto Blue Jays team, which you guess you would think, but now you have Daulton Varsho producing, you have Alejandro Kirk producing. Detroit Tigers, very good team, obviously, but even going back to that Tampa Bay Rays series, Toronto Blue Jays are 2-4 in their last 2 series. They're starting to hit home runs. They're starting to do everything we kind of asked for. We're kind of getting production from these middle of the order guys. And for some reason, obviously, it still isn't working out. We're going to go over game 3 of this series and maybe some reasons why this Toronto Blue Jays team isn't necessarily a winning series with doing things that we have been asking for honestly this entire season. We're going to get into all that after this short break.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never a better way or a better time to get in on the action than FanDuel. The Winnipeg Jets have been eliminated. The NHL playoffs are still here, but I'm sad. My Canucks didn't make it. The Jets get knocked out. Who am I going for now? I don't know. But I'm probably still going to play some bets. FanDuel makes it even easier to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. $200 in bonus bets is a great deal. Jump on that when you can. Make every moment more with FanDuel, of an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's also is sponsored by Farm to Fork. If you're a fan of premium locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door, I've got some exciting news. Farm to Fork makes it easy to get high-quality steaks, air-chilled chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more. All with no antibiotics, hormones, GMOs, plus everything comes flash frozen and individually packaged for your convenience. All Farm to Fork meats are raised on Canadian farms. That's big right now. That's big. Shop Canadian, shop local. You're supporting local producers. It's time to buy Canadian. Like I said so many times, Ross Levitan, host of Locked On Senators, how we got in with Farm to Fork is Ross Levitan had me and Carter over, cooked us up some steaks, and we're like, Jesus. I'm like, where'd you get these steaks? He's like, Farm to Fork, dude. You got to try it. And so he had us over. We had a bunch. It was a great night. Thanks to Ross Levitan from Locked On Sens. I've got a special code for you. Just use LOCKEDON40 to get your $40 off your first order at Farm to Fork. Visit farm2forkdelivery.ca to start stocking up on the best meats around. Again, that's LOCKEDON40 for $40 off your first order. Farm to Fork, delicious locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door. So, Carter, continuing on here, I'll let you sort of give a quick, what's going on. We're not running out of time. Quick, what happened, Game 3, a little bit of rundown, the thoughts, and what can this Toronto Blue Jays team do? We'll get into all that after you let us know sort of what was going on in Game 3.
Yeah, so I actually want to go over the first inning, and it's not the Jose Berrios part of it. It is the defensive part of it. Just two ridiculous catches, just very unfortunate catches for the Toronto Blue Jays, or against the Toronto Blue Jays, I should say, is that this team just cannot find a way to drive runners in the first inning. We see it multiple times. Bichette doing very good in that leadoff spot at getting on base. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. doing a pretty decent job as well, obviously getting on base as well. Just quickly going over what happened in that first inning. Bichette single to left field. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. single to center field. Then Daulton Varsho flies out to deep left center field. Badu at the wall. Very nice jumping catch. Again, you can't necessarily blame him at the wall, but this, again, against most other defenders, I want to say 80% of defenders in the MLB, this is probably a double and probably scores a run here. Then Alejandro Kirk lines out to Badu once again, and with another diving catch in left field. So very unfortunate circumstances, especially with a team that, again, hasn't necessarily struggled to score runs recently, but obviously against a good pitching staff, you want to get to these guys early. Jackson Jobe has been very good this season. And just kind of going into the rest of the game, this is the Spencer Torkelson show, unfortunately, against Jose Berrios. Honestly, just based off the eye test from Jose Berrios, I thought he should have hit around a whole lot more than he actually did in this baseball game. Over the middle, a ton in this game. You kind of get you get a little bit of a pass when you're Jose Berrios when you have disgusting stuff. The changeup is very good. The slurve is disgusting. Got a few whiffs on that slurve, which he does obviously every single baseball game. But a lot of the hits that he gave up in this game were right over the plate. Middle, allowing hitters to get extended. But again, when you look at this baseball game, when you look at how it did end up in the Jose Berrios stat line, you can't necessarily blame Jose Berrios for this. 6 innings pitched, 8 hits, obviously given up. But Jose Berrios kind of is that contact guy, isn't going to necessarily get a ton of strikeouts. 2 earned runs. Again, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. That should set you up to win a baseball game, no matter who you are facing against. But definitely an unfortunate circumstance once again. Alejandro Kirk and Clement being the guys that drove in runners again in this baseball game. So that is definitely frustrating as well. But just, again, one of those things is that when you're playing against a good pitcher, you're going to have to, put up a few runs. 2 runs isn't necessarily going to do it, especially against these good baseball teams.
Yeah, and we see it again, right? So I'm going to go over a little bit the play of what happens sort of in the sequence where the Toronto Blue Jays score. Vladdy walks, that's great. Varsho doubles, amazing. Kirk singles, scores Vladdy. Anthony Santander comes up, punch out. Addison
Who'd have
Barger
thought?
pops out. What's that?
I said, who
Yeah,
would have thought? Anthony
yeah.
Santander again. Just the way the bats have been going, he does foul off a ton of pitches. Is again a bad ball hitter. Had a ton of bad ball home runs last season. But when things aren't going well for Anthony Santander, oh my God, the at bats are almost impossible to watch. And again, we alluded to this in that second segment. There's a reason that John Schneider did drop this guy to the 5th spot in the order. Again, he isn't a slow starter, but at what point with Anthony Santander are you say, hey, it's not a slow start anymore? These at-bats have just been horrific.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, Carter. I'm done saying it. I don't care anymore. Slow start or not, figure it out. And then Ernie Clement singles and scores Daulton Varsho. So again, it's nice to see when these guys are putting things together. It's just at some point you'd hope that this happens more often. And you know what? To be honest with you, Carter, my biggest, I guess, what can the Blue Jays do better is not a whole lot. It's Anthony Santander needs to hit. If you're going to be hitting in the top 4, top 5, you have to be able to hit in big situations. Clutch, timely hitting. It has been a thing that I've been preaching all season long, all into the offseason. Timely hitting. This team needs to do a better job at that. And maybe not this team as a whole, because Daulton Varsho, George Springer, Alejandro Kirk, Ernie Clement, these guys are getting the job done. It's your big 3. And I hate to put Bichette in there too, but he doesn't have sometimes the opportunity to hit in a big situation as much as Vladdy and Santander do. If Bo gets on and then it's nothing, and you're hoping that, whoever it is, Varsho can go 4 for 4 with 4 home runs to win you a baseball game. That's just not going to work. You need your big guys to be your big guys. So I need to start seeing that happen.
See, I'm not going to group Bichette into this anymore. I think after this little bit of a power surge that he has had, I'm okay with what Bichette is doing, especially when it comes to runners in scoring position. 372 average, 941 OPS. What more do you want from Bichette? And this is another reason why you might want him in the leadoff spot, because he does get more at bats, especially with the way the bottom of the order has been playing. You have Nathan Lucas, Miles Straw, again, you can go down the list of these guys that have been producing for your baseball team. You want your best hitter, or at least one of your best hitters, to have the most at bats on your team. And Bichette, 372 average. Sign me up for that. If he can do that the entire year, obviously not expected to do that the entire year, but you cannot complain about what Bichette is doing when he's staying that well with runners in scoring position. That was a massive problem with this team, obviously, last season. But when you look at this baseball team, and there still is a little bit of a power problem, because the AL average in OPS is 703. There is 3 players that on the Toronto Blue Jays team, again, minimum 115 plate appearances, that are above this threshold. You think Santander should be one of them? He is not even close whatsoever. The 3 that are here is George Springer, believe it or not, is leading this team, 840 OPS. Again, you need a guy on your team that has to have that superstar numbers, has to be above 900 OPS, especially if you want to be a playoff team and be taken seriously in the playoffs. Maybe you can get there, but if you don't have a guy that, again, can come up in a big situation, can come up with that big hit, especially if it's a double or triple home run, especially what you want in the playoffs. We talked about it a ton last season. You need home run hitters in the playoffs. It's a lot easier to have one very good swing rather than 3 good swings to get a big inning, especially when you have runners on base. That home run swing does matter a whole lot. But you have George Springer at 840, you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at 814, which, again, when you're paying a guy $500 million, you kind of want that to be above an 814 average. Bichette at 774, and everyone else on this baseball team, including Anthony Santander, obviously, are under that average threshold for the AL. So there is still obviously a problem with this team with getting that big hit, with hitting doubles, with hitting home runs, getting that little bit of the power. Again, when you start so slow, those numbers are a little bit skewed. Against a good Detroit baseball team, you don't necessarily expect, put up 6, 7, 8 runs. But if you're going to play a competitive baseball team, if you're going to be a baseball team that is supposed to be a contender and be taken seriously, you have to win these baseball teams, especially against good teams in the AL.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's the same thing we've been talking about forever now. It's you need the power, you need the pop, you need the timely hitting, you need the superstar factor.
We just need like all facets of this team to like not even all facets, just like let's get two of the facets, whether it's the bullpen and the starting pitching. Again, normally you want the hitters to be with one of the pitching facets. You just haven't seen the starting pitching. You haven't seen this whole team click at once, whether it's even Bichette, Vladdy, Santander, all these big three power hitters and your pitching staff all kind of, coming together and being effective at the same time. And if you're not going to get that the entire season, it's going to be very tough to consistently win baseball games, as we have seen throughout the first 46 games of this baseball season.
Yeah, guys, thanks for watching, listening, as you always do. These Monday episodes are longer because there's a lot to go over. We'll be back tomorrow. Off day today for you guys, so we'll have a little bit of an off day episode and then we'll tee up the series for you guys tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in for that. We'll be here. We'll be talking Blue Jays. Hopefully this team can do something against the San Diego Padres, but we will find out later. As always, hit the subscribe button if you're new. We'll talk to you guys later.